Hey, Angels baseball addicts, it's Benny Bam coming at you strong, talking about some of the moves the Angels are making, um, as we've probably seen. As we know, the new GM Perry Manazian is getting a lot of things done, as far as trading for a new shortstop, giving up a couple low-end pitching prospects to do that. So not guys that were major league ready or anything like that. Garrett Stallings being the number one guy that he gave up. The other guy has never really pitched for us on any level that mattered. But obviously, the Orioles were looking to deal. Iglesias has a long track record with the Red Sox, Orioles, and Reds. Actually, as a very solid defensive shortstop. In 60 games last year, he had a very good batting average, so that's positive for us. And he replaces obviously a guy in Simba who left, whether it was COVID concerns or whatever the case may be, a few games before the season ended last year. Obviously, once it was pretty clear the Angels were out of it, he was pretty much gone. And for whatever reason, whether it be family, COVID, whatever it was, he was gone. And it was pretty clear that the Angels did not want to pay Simba moving forward. They had not come to an extension talk as of yet, and this is back when Billy Epler was the GM. So that didn't happen. So for whatever reason, Simba is no longer the shortstop in Anaheim. Which sucks because we gave up Sean Newcomb and Chris Ellis to get him. Chris Ellis hasn't really worked out in Atlanta, but Sean Newcomb obviously still has very good starter potential. It's a guy you'd love to have. But I mean, Simba gave us a few good years and definitely fantastic player. Just an amazing defender, man. That guy makes tags and just does things that you just don't see people do it. It's just like, wow, how does he do that? How does he grab the ball in one motion then and go between his legs and tag somebody that's just about to get to the bag? Like, how does he even have the sensibility, and the awareness and just, understanding where he is on the field and where everybody else is and how fast they're moving and all those things to just come together the way like a perfect defender. You think of all those combination of all those things together, with the perfect physical traits and stuff. And this guy is literally the perfect shortstop. Andrelton Simmons is the perfect shortstop. There's just no other way to put it other than that, right? So you're not going to replace him, right? You're not going to get another perfect shortstop. These guys aren't just around. You can't just find them everywhere, right? And we gave up two really good pitching prospects that you could argue maybe we shouldn't have even to get him, right? Because before that we had Eric Ibar forever and a couple fill-ins in between, going all the way back. But nobody nearly as good, obviously, defensively. And with you having pitching problems as an organization that you can't seem to solve, defense becomes even bigger of an issue, right? Because if you just have average defense and bad pitching, now you're going to be really bad. But if you have really good pitching, average or really good defense and average pitching, you can make up a little bit of that, contact, with your defense. So obviously with Rendon and Simba over there, we didn't get to see it a lot, but that was for however long that was going on. That was probably one of the best combos you're ever going to see at shortstop and third base defensively. Rendon's got amazing range. He doesn't look like he can do a lot out there, but then when you actually see a ball hit to him and see how easily he just makes it all, the dude's just so smooth, Anthony Rendon. Everything he does either at the plate or at third base is just smooth. He just gets over there and you're like, how did he even get over there? Like, it didn't even look like he was running hard, and somehow he went from there to there in like 2 seconds. It doesn't even make sense. And then he just launches a missile across the field and you're like, wow, like that guy was out by like 3 steps and he should have been safe, like. So it's just amazing. So now with Rendon over there, that gives you a little bit of room to play with, although they're not playing with it. By getting Jose Iglesias, you're basically saying we are still putting a premium on shortstop defense. We are not just going to put Fletch over there, even though they could get away with that. In years past, the Angels would have done that because they could. We could cheap out and not have to get another shortstop and just put Fletch over there because he could do it. Even though that's probably not where it's best for Fletch to be, he would do it if we asked him to do it. And this way you can still have him fill in a little bit over there, but obviously Iglesias won't play every single one of the games that they play next year. Now you have a chance for Fletch to really open up with Estella gone to really become that second baseman. Barreto can back him up, or if they get rid of Barreto, who they got in the La Stella trade, however they want to do that. There's only so much money going around, and payroll's not really expanding because of the pandemic and the less amount of games and all that kind of stuff. So you have to really be careful, but Artie Moreno has said the payroll won't go down, which pretty much means that they did a cost-effective move to get a shortstop so that they could spend their money in other places. That's basically what they did. So instead of saying, hey, we're going to pay Simba $15 million a year to come back and really be hurt most of the time, I mean, let's be honest, okay? Love the guy when he's healthy, but not a lot. Not a lot of healthiness going on there, right? Maybe half a season, something like that. So it just depends. Maybe you get lucky and it's a little more, but he's getting older, and as you get older, you tend to be injured even more, especially when you play the kind of all-world defense and do the amazing things that he does. So reality is reality, right? Maybe he'll have another great season or two, but it probably wasn't worth the 15 mil or whatever he was going to want from us. So good luck to him. I hope he wins a title, whatever. I've heard Toronto and other teams are talking to him. So, hey, that's, Simba, take care. Best of luck to you. Thanks for being an angel. We appreciated it and what you did at short. But now Iglesias slides in. So you've got Iglesias and Rendon, and then you've got Fletch and Walsh / Pujols going on, blinking over here at first base. Pujols is actually not horrible defensively. Even now, at 39 years old, he's not horrible defensively. I mean, you could argue still that he's the best defensive first baseman that we have. That's not saying a lot because Walsh is not a great defensive first baseman either, but both guys can get the job done. Pujols obviously earlier in his career was a Gold Glover, but just in relevance to now, that's not really important anymore. I mean, because that's not what he is right now. Right now, he's average. He's good enough to put at first base. I mean, when you put him out there at first, it's not like most guys that are 39 or 40 where you're like, ooh, I hope he doesn't make a mistake. Like, you feel like Pujols is competent. Like, he's not going to let stupid balls go by him or drop stupid stuff. He knows first base. He can definitely do that. If nothing else, he can play first base. He's not the quickest guy, but he can still make some plays, and he still does make plays. He'll make a dive. He'll dive. He'll go out. The only thing where it hurts you is when there's a lot of foul territory and he needs to sprint to a ball or something like that. Maybe another guy would be able to do that better, but I would take his intangibles over most guys in their 20s still at first base. But we'll see how much he even plays. He may not even be an everyday player anymore. It doesn't sound like he's going to be. They all see the writing on the wall. It's his last year, that contract, and Angels trying to be like, hey, listen, like, we're not extending this, and if we do, it's not at the number you're at now, that's for sure. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, the Angels have a lot of options. Now, in the outfield, we've seen a little bit of concern, but there's also a lot of hope. Joe Adell is a phenomenal prospect. The dude's got hitting intangibles and fielding intangibles that are great. He has not put that all together on the major league level yet. He is still struggling to find exactly what it is that he needs to click in gear. Mike Trout seems hopeful. We've been talking about him, talking about where he is in his career and where he is in his development and how he can Mike Trout's kind of the same way where he's like, I kind of see the pieces. They're just not together yet. At the plate, he does adjust. So it's not like all of his at-bats are like, oh my God. But I mean, he has made some adjustments already to the way they were pitching him. Unlike a guy like Justin Upton, although you could argue that Upton did at the end of the year. But I mean, Justin Upton's been an all-star, and it baffles me when you even watch his at-bats because it's just like, dude, like, you have the same at-bat every single time and you don't ever do anything differently. Like, what is the problem? What is the deal? So he does frustrate you a little bit like that, Adele does, but he also, I think he was trying, real hard, and he was trying to go yard a little bit more than he probably should have. And so once he relaxes and settles down, I think he'll be fine. We still have Brandon Marsh coming up, which I like a lot. I like the idea of having Adele, Trout, and Marsh out there moving forward. That's actually not a bad idea. And we actually have other outfielders that are on their way up too. We have a lot of outfield and infield guys actually coming up through the system. Not as many pitchers as we would like, but a couple. I mean, certainly Reed Detmers is a guy that we drafted last year, number 10 overall, and he looks great. He looks phenomenal. So he could be a top line, rotation guy, but they still need to go out and get him. They can't go, oh, well, we have a guy coming up. First of all, one guy is not nearly enough with injuries and stuff. That's not enough even if that did happen. Chris Rodriguez they kept, obviously a guy they feel like they can help them in the future, putting his pitches together and stuff like that. And they brought Brandon Marsh up. Both those guys came up to the 40-man to avoid being, poached by other teams. So they brought him up to the 40-man so they didn't have to risk losing those guys. But there's some guys they didn't tender. Most of those guys are in the bullpen. And some of those guys are very familiar to us. So first one, left-hander Hobie Milner. Never was great for us, but I think at some point he could be decent, in a spot-up role with the new 3-batter minimum. If that stays, that's going to hurt guys like him that could be spotty left-handed guys. When you have to go 3 batters, it really limits that manager's availability to use you more as a lefty. But we'll see what happens. I mean, they could still come up with all kinds of interesting ways to use a guy like him, but it won't be probably with the Halos. Justin Anderson, who at times was good for the Angels, not enough. Certainly consistency was an issue. Matt Andriese, who actually was acquired last year and did okay, but was asked to do things he probably shouldn't have been asked to do, which is really the story of our entire pitching staff the last like 5 years is that we have all these guys that are, one inning guys, and we're asking them to go out there and, bail out a starter that can't get through 3 innings. And then that guy ends up going four and getting lit up in the fourth inning of that. And even though he did really well for the first two, which is more than he usually does, he gets lit up and then he looks really bad by the end of that. That's the same thing with all of these guys, really. Noe Ramirez, when you can use him from 1 inning, you're fine. If he goes any more than 1 inning, it's not fine anymore. And then he doesn't look very good, right? Cam Bedrosian was like that, although Cam Bedrosian was also where they used him. Brad Ausmus never seemed to really learn any lessons from Cam's career before Brad got there. Never really looked at any footage, and then would put him in high leverage situations where he would get lit up again. And it was like watching the same story unfold again with Brad Ausmus and Cam, but Cam's gone as well. He wasn't one of these non-tenders, but he was already gone. The one that I didn't really like was Keenan Middleton, and I'll tell you why. Keenan Middleton, anytime he has been healthy, has been very solid out of the bullpen. You can say what you want, and I mean, you can point to this instance or that instance where he wasn't, but the instances where he wasn't, he was either probably not used correctly or he was asked to do too much too soon. The guy just came off surgery. He's still recovering, and before that, he was a lockdown, back of the bullpen type of guy and had that kind of stuff. His stuff is still there, but he's still learning everything again and getting everything back to where it needs to be. I think that was too soon. I would love to see the Angels keep him around. The other guy obviously was Hansel Robles, who previously had never really done much in his career, whether it's with the Mets or other teams, and he just could not seem to put it together, and he actually became a solid closer for us for a couple years. Not all the time, but most of the time you'd put him in and you feel pretty good about it. Him and Buttrey were kind of like those guys, for us the last couple years, especially when Key got hurt. Before that, it looked like Keenan Middleton was clearly going to be the next closer before we even needed those guys, really. And then Key got hurt, and those guys had that opportunity for a couple years and made the most out of it. Robles fell off a little bit last year. Buttrey's still okay. It's a little spotty, but okay. But again, I would say the usage and what these guys are forced to do based on what starters cannot do has more to do with the bullpen and how the bullpen can perform than anything else. I mean, that really has to do with everything. And I know that we're in a bullpen era where, if you can just get 5 out of your starter, even if he's still pitching really well, take him out and you're going to go 4 out of your bullpen. Joe Maddon's a little bit of an old school manager, even though he mixes in analytics pretty well. And I know in talking to my friends on shows like The Backstop, like Jim Capanis Jr., Eric Lunenburg, longtime baseball guys that have played and been around the game, I don't understand moves like pulling Blake Snell in the World Series when he's dealing, because you go, well, he's going to go around the lineup one more time. Okay, well, let's see him struggle first. Let's see evidence that he's going to struggle. Don't just tell me that he will based on previous things. Like, let's actually see it. Because what more do you want in a most high leverage situation when you have a chance to win a World Series than your best pitcher dealing on the mound? What more could you ask for than that? I don't understand. If the Angels had a guy like Snell, I would love to have him on the mound in the 6th or 7th inning dealing, because we don't want to go to our bullpen or put these guys in situations like that. And now, we did have, we did have some bright spots in the bullpen last year. Let's not kid ourselves. There's some bright spots. We found a couple guys I think can really help us going forward, and a couple guys we already had, whether it be Noe or Mike Mayers, who actually got reliever of the month. I think it was the last month of the season. Congratulations. I congratulated him as well. And then, we have some other guys that could potentially help. And then depending on how the starters play out, you can maybe end up having a guy like Sandoval in the bullpen. You can end up having, depending on who we actually keep. I mean, you got to think we still have enough starters, right? They still got Barria. They've still got Canning. They still got Haney. They've still got Sandoval. They still got all these guys, Suarez. They've still got these guys, right? But they're not top-line starters. Shohei coming back. Maybe Shohei in the bullpen would be the way to go so that he doesn't have to overtax his arm by pitching so long. I mean, think about pitching 6 or 7 innings and then going out there and hitting 4 times a week and what that would do to your body. I mean, one of those jobs is full-time, right? So as much as I believe that he probably could do it because he's only like 25, 26 years old, I don't think that he should do it. I think that if he's going to pitch, we should try him in the bullpen so that he can pitch an inning at his best and then relax, and then still be able to hit or hit him less. But the way that his bat is, I actually believe Shohei should consider just being a hitter. I mean, the guy can pitch. He can definitely pitch. He can pitch over 100 miles an hour. That splitter when his arm is healthy is just disgusting. I've posted pictures of it on Angels Baseball Addicts over and over. I mean, it is filthy, that splitter he's got. It looks just like a fastball, and at the end it just goes, see ya. It's the most unbelievable splitter ever. I was just like, wow, like that just is, it just baffles your mind. Like, as a hitter, like, you really, like, how do you even do anything with that? And the answer is, when he was healthy, nobody really did anything with it. So he had like 10 starts that first year before his arm went out, and nobody could do anything with him. And he had an ERA around 2. It was just, and that's what he was when he was healthy in Japan. And that's great, fantastic. But if he can't stay healthy, there's no point to doing anything, right? So maybe in the bullpen, I think they're going to try Shohei one more time as a starter, and just because they need it so bad too, they're going to give it another whirl, and he really wants to do it, and they're like, all right, let's give this one more shot. But if it doesn't work out and he can't stay healthy this year as a pitcher, it does affect, as we saw last year, even in a short season, it will affect your hitting. There is no way as a person to mentally separate how you feel as a hitter and how you feel as a pitcher. You can't do, if you feel like crap and you feel horrible because you just gave up 5 runs last night, you're going to feel like crap when you go up to the plate today. It's just the way that it works, like there's just no, you can't go, well, no, I'm just a hitter today, so I'm just going to think about that. It's just not human. You can't, even if you could do it a little bit, you can't do it all the time. So those things really matter, but what really matters the most, honestly, is we need starters. We need guys that can eat up good quality innings. And it's not a secret. We have one of the all-time great players in the history of baseball right now. Mike Trout, obviously, right? Rendon's no slouch either, and Fletcher can get on base. So now they've solved a lot of problems. You've got a guy in front of Trout and Fletcher, whether he's 2 or 1 or whatever, whether he's leading off or not, he can get on base for you. Trout can obviously drive in runs. Before it was just him driving himself, and now he drives in him and Fletcher a lot of times, or whoever else is in those roles, the first couple batters. And now you've got Rendon, so they actually have to pitch to Trout and not just walk him, or at least pitch him somewhat honestly, where he gets 1 or 2 pitches in at bat that he could potentially hit. When Mike Trout is locked in, like we saw after the birth of Bat, his son, right, with the Bat initials, which of course is amazing and only makes perfect sense, right? Everybody's recruiting that kid already, I guarantee it. But, it's interesting when you look at that, because when he was really locked in for those like 3 weeks after the birth of his first child, nobody could do anything. Like, when Mike Trout decides, I'm just going to do this, he just does it. When he goes, oh, I think I'm going to go out there and improve my base stealing this year, he just does it. When he goes, oh, I think I'm going to get better at the jumps I get on balls in the outfield this year, he just does it. When he just goes, I'm just going to do something, it happens, right? The only thing he can't do to Will is because the proportionate amount of influence he has as one player on an enormous roster, he can't just go, I'm just going to get us into the playoffs. He does his damnedest to do it. I mean, honestly. I mean, if you look at anybody that could do it, he could do it. Him and Barry Bonds are the guys that you look at in history and go, those guys could do that. If they really wanted to do it, I honestly believe still that if Mike Trout really said, I'm going to get us in the playoffs this year no matter what, he could do it. If he really set his mind to it, I believe he could overcome the pitching deficiencies and really do it. The problem is that he should not have to do that, and that is going to wear him completely out to even think that way. So they've got to get him some help. They've got to get him some pitching. He shouldn't have to think that way, and he shouldn't have to try to do that, right? Even though, yes, he signed the extension, he shouldn't have to do that. They can score runs. Just with Fletch, Rendon, and Trout, they could score runs, but they got other guys that can hit. Stassi's not healthy right now, but that was a bright spot last year to see him hitting a little bit. That was nice. Upton, if Upton can ever find anything that could be helpful for us, that'd be awesome. I'm not counting on it, but honestly, we don't even really need that spot to be productive in the lineup. I mean, whatever. We've got enough. Iglesias can hit for average, which is fine. He's more of a contact hitter. That actually goes against modern day analytics to be a contact hitter. But Joe Madden's an old school guy. Even though he uses analytics and he's not afraid of them, he knows that you need contact hitters in order to be successful. Because it's about where you're making contact. It's not just about making contact. And that's where analytics kind of get lost, is where, well, if you make contact, you're going to be out this amount of time. No, contact is a good thing in baseball because it forces the defense to react. And that ultimately, depending on the team you're playing and where you place the ball, can actually be a really good thing for you. If they've got a bad second baseman and you make a lot of contact to second base, that can work in your favor, percentage wise. Put pressure on that guy, and then it actually, just as a human being, that kind of thing does avalanche on you, and you will get some mistakes. And so all those things are real. I mean, those are real things that really happen that analytics can't measure a person's psyche and their ability and pressure, their ability to handle pressure and not make mistakes based on that. It's only talking about averages and in a widespread sense of analytical data, so that is important. But the Angels need to get creative here. Whether it's Jake Odorizzi would be nice. That would be a nice guy to get. Paxton's coming off an injury, but James Paxton is a guy that pitched well in the AL West for the Mariners for a while, and I think that he may have a good year or two left in him that we could probably use in the meantime so we can find more of a long-term solution. Because the truth is there aren't that many long-term solutions out there. I like Trevor Bauer. I wish we could get Trevor Bauer. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that he wants to be in Anaheim, even if he wanted to play in Anaheim because he's from the area. I don't think that ultimately he wants to play for the Angels because, number one, he wants to play for a contender, and he thinks they're more than one solid pitcher away from that. And he also is not a huge fan of our pitching coach because they've worked together before, and they were not on the same page, it seemed like, enough of the time, whether it was Callaway or Bauer or whatever. It seemed like that had enough of an effect where they would not want to revisit that. Whether you agree with that or not, whether that's true, whatever the case may be, I've heard that it's true. So, and that would be, that almost by itself would disqualify the Angels from contention. I hope that's not true. I hope that they at least sit down with him. I hope that they at least have a conversation about it with Bauer and with his agent Rachel and all that, and fantastic things they're doing over there. Awesome stuff. A new agency, top 30 entrepreneurs under 30. Rachel Lupa, his agent just got. So Lupa or Lupica, I can't remember her last name, but fantastic stuff they're doing over there. Obviously, anybody that's trying to make it and be an entrepreneur and be a groundbreaker, especially as a female in a male-dominated agency world, that is fantastic stuff. And I would definitely encourage anybody who's out there to break barriers and to not listen to the status quo when it comes to things like that. But the Angels need a lot of help, and they need it in order to get people out. And it's just the way that it is. And as much as we want to sit here and think about it, you could get this help in a lot of ways. It's not just free agents. You can make trades. You can make trades to get guys. There'll be painful trades, maybe. Maybe you have to get some guys you don't want to give up in the farm system, that we finally have some decent guys down there. But you're going to have to make a decision. Do we want to waste the rest of Mike Trout's prime, or do we want to build an accurate farm system? And what you want to do is probably both, but that's not the easiest answer when you have big, gigantic holes in your pitching rotation. You've got to get these guys from somewhere. And if you want to try to sign them so that you don't have to give up existing talent or draft pick compensation, there's only certain guys you're going to be able to sign. You're limiting your sample size there. Now, ultimately, they brought in Perry because he comes from a scouting background in Atlanta. Atlanta obviously has been developing, and specifically developing pitching for years and years and years, from the Bobby Cox era all the way through now. They've been doing that better than probably just about any other ball club that I can think of. I mean, the Braves develop pitching. That's what they do. The Braves develop pitching. That's just what they are, right? And Perry was a big part of what they've developed with not just pitching, but with all those other young guys that they've got over there, Acuna and all those guys that they've got over there that have just been tearing it up and are ahead of schedule and have Atlanta contending now very quickly in the National League. So as you look at that, that's great because it means that he can ultimately find diamonds in the rough. He can ultimately draft well. He understands how to scout, all those things, and he brought over some help with him, people that helped him there. And obviously the Angels still had a few good scouts. I don't remember who all is still there from this past couple years, but we had some good scouts. Scouting was not a huge problem under Epler, but I think that Epler could not get over the hump, and that's why he's ultimately gone. I mean, they had hoped even last year with some of the signings they made that they could work it out, and it just never happened. Dylan Bundy was a nice move, and they need some more moves like that. But the problem is then Dylan Bundy, if he leaves next year when he's a free agent and you get nothing for him, then you just gave up those prospects and you didn't even get the pitcher to stay. So, they need to figure out ways to get this pitching, maintain it, sustain it. Homegrown stuff is obviously the cheapest way to do that, but let's be honest, the Angels don't need to do the cheapest thing. Artie Moreno's got money. I mean, he spends it constantly. You've got $30 or $36 million coming off the books next year when Pujols his contract is up. They've got a couple other ones. The year after that, you've got Upton. Maybe they'll be able to move that in the meantime between now and then and get rid of some of it before. Or if it just expires, then they'll just get rid of it altogether. So we'll see what happens. Angels got some work to do. I like what I've seen. Jose Iglesias that's a nice cheap solution at shortstop that actually is a meaningful one. It's a guy that can play defense. He's done that his whole career. There's no doubt there, and he stays pretty healthy too. He's not a guy that gets hurt a lot, and he can hit for average. So all those things are good. That's good. Contact, hit for average. You get another guy in there that can get on base in front of Trout and Rendon, and he's not going to hurt you on defense. Fantastic. Good start. Not nearly enough. So we need that. We need more depth. Catcher, do you really want it to be Ben Boom and Stassi? I think Jose Brasino actually signed with the Rockies, so we actually lost him as well, who I really like. I really like Brasino, but probably not a starter in the league or anything, but a guy that was solid and filled in a lot for us. So if Stassi can get healthy and come back, who do you pair him with? Is it worth spending money on a guy like JT Realmuto? I don't think so. I really don't. He doesn't hit for a high enough average and hit enough. He doesn't do enough offensively to justify giving him a $20 million a year contract. But a guy like, James McCann, you may be able to get somebody like that. There's a lot of guys you could look at. Yachty on a 1 or 2 year deal would at least give you leadership and defense. And he gives you timely hitting still. He's still a guy that can give you some timely hits. And I think, playing with Pujols might revitalize him again. And that's could be the last year of both their careers, or at least really close to it. I think there's a lot of options out there, or there's a lot of other catching options other than those guys. Get somebody young, maybe make a painful trade and try to go after, a young catcher, try to get a guy that's even in his mid-30s, maybe like a Travis D'Arnaud, or, if you wanted to try to do a more painful move, you could try to go get somebody else. But you can't spend too much money on any of these because really you need to spend it on pitching. But the problem is if they can't find the pitching, they're going to have to try to supplement the best way they can. So last year they tried to do it by bringing in Castro, and they said, well, we're going to get Bundy, and then, we're going to try to bring in some of these other guys and supplement here and supplement there. But the problem is we're at the point in time where supplementing has not been working. So you supplement when you have really good ingredients and you just need some depth pieces around it. The Angels need more than just supplemental pieces when it comes to pitching. They need real pitching, and then they need to supplement it on top of that. So they need to get some real innings-eating, solid, not injury-prone, lower ERA type of dudes, guys that are going to be expensive. If it means they have to go out and get Snell and make a move that hurts and get rid of a guy like Adele or Marsh, then they're going to have to do that. And they need to be open to that and say, hey, you know what? Our approach has not been working. It's not just Billy Epler's fault. It's our approach, and it was happening before Epler too. So we need to get together and figure this out and make these moves. And I have faith that they will do something differently. I hope that they will actually do it. But we'll see. But Angels fans, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's your team, right? So we all want to rag on them and hold them accountable, and we should to a large extent, especially at this point with this many years of Mike Trout's prime now kind of seemingly being, for lack of a better term, pissed away. Even though he's winning individual awards, which, by the way, last year he should have been in that MVP consideration, and I'm not even going to get into that right now. The only reason he would not be in the MVP consideration is if you disqualified him from the award. That's the only way that could happen. There is no way to talk about most valuable player to a team and not include Mike Trout in the first 3 people that come out of your mouth. There's no way to do that. I challenge you to find 3 guys more valuable in the history of baseball, probably, but especially playing right now, especially just in one league because the MVP's AL and NL. You're not going to find 3 AL guys that are more valuable to their team than Mike Trout any year that he's healthy. It's not going to happen. Good luck with that. I dare you to do it because there's no way you could. And it's all about story, and it's all about exceeding expectations. Mike Trout's a boring story because he does this every single year. The truth is, he was probably the MVP again last year. But you know why he doesn't get consideration? Because he missed a little bit of time because his kid was born. And even though he actually made up statistically all of that time and it didn't even really matter, his team didn't make the playoffs, and it wasn't a great story. They made a charge at the end, but they never had the pitching to really seriously be in it, even if they had made the playoffs somehow, and everybody knew that. And so, we're not going to give it to Trout this year. Baseball writers, I don't know what's wrong with you guys, but if you look at anybody but Mike Trout for AL MVP, that guy had better have a season that is unlike any season that's ever happened in the history of baseball. Because otherwise, what you're doing is you're robbing somebody who's outperforming everyone else and penalizing them because they do it consistently. Think about that for a second. That's insanity. That is just sheer insanity. And it's not just a homer talking just because I have Angels stuff up behind me, just because I'm talking about this on Angels Baseball Addicts. I know what you're thinking. Oh, Benny, you're not being unbiased here. You think that Mike Trout should always win MVP. The truth is, anytime he's healthy, he does win it. He does win it anytime he's healthy. Even when he's not healthy, he's won it. He's won it after missing the last month of the season. He did it last year. All right, so we can talk about this all day long. The truth is, he is the MVP when he's healthy. You know why? Because nobody else has the value to their team that he does. Most valuable player. You can look at one stat line or two stat lines and go, oh, it could be this guy has a higher average. Oh, it could be that guy has a higher home run total. Oh, but that guy had more steals. Oh, but technically this guy saved more runs in the outfield. Oh, but technically this guy, because he's a shortstop, plays a more premium position. You can convince yourself of whatever you want. If Mike Trout's healthy, he's the AL MVP. If he performs anywhere on the level that he's performed, and he's still getting better, he's still getting better. Look at his stats year over year. He's still getting better. All the stats that matter, he's still getting better every single year. He has not stopped getting better yet. How could you possibly argue that one of these other guys that just has one decent, solid year comes up and does that without anything historic happening? A triple crown from Miggy Cabrera, I understand how that could beat out a Mike Trout year for MVP. Still don't agree with it, but I still understand the historical context in having that happen. Anybody else that just has an average good year, Josh Donaldson, Jose Altuve, Mookie Betts, whoever it was, Mookie Betts in the NL now, but anybody else that's in the AL, Jose Abreu, whoever it is, no, it's not. They're not more valuable to their team than Mike Trout. It's insanity to say that about anybody but Mike Trout in the AL. It's just crazy. Who's more valuable than him to their team? I don't know. But we're going to follow up as the Angels continue to make moves. We're going to continue to follow him. And hopefully we'll have a team together that can do something like get us into the playoffs next year. Bam.